All right, we should be live now. We'll wait for a few people to come on. I'm going to go ahead and tweet this out again while we have people coming into the live stream. I want to say thanks for coming on today. We got a special treat today. Mati Allin from YouTube, super knowledgeable guy when it comes to wealth, when it comes to controlling your emotions, when it comes to delaying your success, when it comes to investment. So we're going to be talking about all of that today. We're going to be talking about Hex, his journey, how he got started into Hex, how he got retired from Hex. We're also going to be talking about what is Pulsechain, what is PulseX, and what is all the noise about as well. And so, Mati, man, first and foremost, I want to say thanks for coming on to the show. How are you, brother?
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Man, it was a pleasure, man. Got a chance to meet you at Bitcoin conference, man, and then from there, it was just kind of history.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody that you were there with seemed to be really awesome and knowledgeable. And so I appreciate you having me on your channel.
Yeah, man. I want to say thanks for coming on as well. I know you're a busy guy as well, so just want to say thanks. And so we still got a few people coming on. I just let me go ahead and retweet this real quick, Matt. Uh, all right, looks like we got a new member as well. All right, so Matt, man, kind of talk to us about this whole hex thing. This whole how did everything get started for you in crypto? Like, when did you first get into actual cryptocurrency itself?
Yeah. So I got into crypto back in 2016, 2017, and of course was really interested in Bitcoin and how you could make this magic internet money by running computers. And it's really funny. I had just made my first small business around selling solar eclipse sunglasses
Okay.
because Amazon stopped selling them because they were faulty or something. And so they gave everybody a refund. And then I moved in on eBay and just sold tons of solar eclipse glasses for like a week. And I made $1,000. And I was like, all right, cool. What should I sell next? And so I heard about this thing called Bitcoin miners. And so I started ordering from Bitmain in China. And then I started importing physical Bitcoins that had 1,000th of a Bitcoin on them, and sold like over $100,000 worth of those. And then and then the bear market hit. And so I kept learning more and more about crypto during that time and how to run like a full node and that kind of stuff. But I never myself got into mining because it's kind of not very profitable.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And so, when did you hear about Hex, or kind of like, was there anything that brought you into kind of like Hex, right? Because I feel like projects like Hex, it's an acquired taste, kind of like certain alcohol, right? And so, what kind of led you into the whole Hex thing and just paying yourself in the future? Because I know that's a big motto for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, my background is I was a neuroscientist for 7 years. And so I had a strong technical background. And then I was a mental health therapist for 7 years, not even worrying about how much money I could make, but how many people I could help. And so I didn't expect to be where I am today, where I'm a multimillionaire, retired. I can, for the most part, do what I want and, and try to help more people and reach more people on YouTube. But when it comes to how I heard about Hex, I had learned a lot of things about Bitcoin. And one of the things that I learned was that people could do what's called a free claim, where you could prove that you had a certain amount of Bitcoin and you would get a certain amount of tokens from different projects. And so one of the projects was Hex. One of them was like Mimblewimble Coin and Bitcoin Rhodium. Those were the three they were kind of like airdrops that were happening. And so I was learning how to sign a transaction to prove that I had a certain amount of Bitcoin. And that's how I heard about Hex.
Man, that's crazy, man. That's crazy. And I know before we dig any deeper into that, man, I know you kind of have like a side slideshow that you created and put together. So I'll go ahead and let you show that now if you like.
Absolutely. So my YouTube channel is super technical, and I've got like 2,000 people who are multimillionaires in Hex who watch, and that's who I kind of cater to. And so today coming on your channel is one of the chances I'm going to have to try to explain things to somebody who maybe doesn't already know the full history of Hex and Richard Hart and Pulsechain. And I've been involved in the development to some extent, and I'm an expert on it. So here's a picture of you and I meeting at the Bitcoin conference.
Absolutely.
That was really fun. And here's a bunch of other celebrities that I met other than you, Mike. Safety and Amos and Anthony Pompliano, Bobby Lee, Jimmy Song, Robert Breedlove, Pierre Richard, Max Kaiser. Just trying to name drop here.
Yeah.
All my Bitcoin fans out there.
For sure.
So I got retired from Hex. I founded the Hex conference, and I've had, so we did an online conference about a year and a half ago, and then we did a meetup after that, and then we did the second annual Hex conference in January online, and we had a meetup in Vegas, and that was the biggest meetup of Hex people. We had like 500 to 600 people there, and I do weekly shows on YouTube, and I'm a Pulse and Hex and Pulsechain expert. People, if you're following me and you're not following Mike, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button now for his channel. And if you want to follow me, I'm Mati Allin on everything. The topics that I cover are passive income, like Mike does, game theory, sudden wealth syndrome, psychology, and actually now longevity, extending human life. I got to do an interview with Aubrey de Grey, who's like in the top 3 experts in the world in longevity. So this is kind of like when I zoom all the way out and I look at crypto, being a veteran who knows a lot about Bitcoin and Ethereum and maybe not all the altcoins out there, maybe not the latest trends, but just in general, to me, what I see is the crypto space is filled with a lot of promise coins, and everything is driven by marketing and narratives because most people can't read code. And it's like there's always a transition. What is the tech in crypto? Well, it seems like the tech is all the cool narratives that people tell you about and all the most popular things. But really, it's a world where things have cost not that much or have been free. It's like moving to a fee model where Coinbase wants to be your middleman and MetaMask Swap is getting in and getting their point. It's 7% fee. And there's all these fees on centralized and decentralized exchanges. And so even Bitcoin to some extent and Ethereum could be considered promise coins in the sense that they still need devs to work on them to maintain the network. And it's only 5 devs, and maybe that's normal to most people. I think it is. But when we look at something like Hex, it's something that doesn't need a dev team to work on it. It's complete. And then with Pulsechain and PulseX, we'll get into what the details are there. But there's more, I think, to the future of crypto than just promising things and buying the rumor, selling the news, pump and dump, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you, man, 100%.
So some of the skills that can be helpful to people when they're doing crypto is critical thinking. I worked for about a year challenging myself to master fear and greed. And how I did that was, if there was a crypto that I was interested in dollar cost averaging into, I would only buy when it was down. So if it went up 3 days in a row, I would wait 3 days, and then on the 4th day, if it went down, that would be the day that I would buy. And it was not so much that I thought I could time the market and beat the market, but it was that I wanted to practice regulating my own emotions. And then once I had coins that had done a 10x, like Mimblewimble coin, and I was more interested in dollar cost averaging out of that and getting more into Hex and cashing out some. Then I had to master the emotion of greed. And the same thing, I would have to sell when the price went up and not when the price went down.
Absolutely. And I think that's a huge thing though, like for like most investors though, like even beginners and some seasonal investors, because I think, we're all human at the end of the day. So really keeping those emotions in check, man, could definitely be a daily battle as an investor.
And there's a famous phrase that I think a lot of people have said, that it's not about timing the market, it's about time in the market, especially if what you're in has a good product market fit, if it has a good future ahead of it. And so that's something we can talk about too. The basic economics, again, if we're thinking of like what are the skills and what are the realities that decide how well a crypto does, is the only thing that affects the price of something is how many people buy and hold it. And that's a theme we'll come back to as well, is like, we'll actually look at like, well, who owns all the hex? Like, who is going to own all the pulse chain starting off? And what are those people's incentives going to be? And then delaying gratification is also something, there are different levels to that. So just because somebody can buy and hold doesn't mean that that's their entire plan for how they're going to have a successful life. For each person, when they want to cash out and how much mad gains they want and stuff, like that's all individualized, but there are still some things that, some tips and tricks that people can get for that. So
yeah, for sure.
So what is pulse chain? So to simplify it, the pulse chain it's the largest airdrop in history. And now, have you ever gotten an airdrop before?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to say which one?
No.
Okay. Well, I've gotten I got the Uniswap airdrop that was worth about $1,200. I got the ENS airdrop that was worth several $1,000s, and that one's a good one to point out to people. I'm wanting to make a public service announcement because the deadline to claim your ENS airdrop that is still worth probably a couple $1,000s is coming up here in the next week or so. And so if you ever bought a .eth domain name, then you qualify and you need to go to the trusted site and claim that. And so the deadline is coming up in early May, I believe. So, but Pulse Chain is going to be an airdrop where it's basically whenever somebody creates a new coin, they have to decide who to give it to. Satoshi in Bitcoin decided to give all the new coins to people who, mine the network, who run supercomputers. And, but in Uniswap, they decided to give all the coins to people who had used the decentralized exchange in its first year of operation or something. So in Pulse Chain, everybody who has coins on Ethereum will get a copy of those coins on the Pulse Chain. And so this has never been done before. Binance forked Ethereum, but they just forked the code. They didn't fork all the coins.
Right.
Richard Hart is the first person to identify this opportunity for basically forking all the coins. And the reason why that is so interesting as well is because that's been done before. All the things we're going to talk about that that are involved in the game theory side of things, they've all been done to some extent before. So giving people a copy or giving people an alternate place to go where the product is better, that's sometimes called a vampire attack in crypto, and people can look up and see what that means. But this is kind of a form of a vampire attack because it's incentivizing millions of users to come use the Pulse Chain network to get their free money. And we don't know what the value of all your coins are going to be worth on Pulse Chain, but we do know that they will have some value because there will be automated market makers set up there. There's going to be a price, and the price might not start off the same as it does on the Ethereum chain, but these two chains will compete. And whichever one becomes more popular and has more price support and more market makers providing liquidity, we could see examples where some coins that are now on Ethereum, when you get your copy on Pulsechain, some of those coins will be worth more on Pulsechain someday, probably. The other thing that Pulsechain does is it fixes the fee problem. So the Ethereum fees are really high. In the Pulsechain, it's going to be basically a lot like Ethereum 2.0 was supposed to be, except even on the ETH 2.0 roadmap, they don't really do a good job of addressing the fees because of a number of reasons. But anyway, this is going to fix the fee problem, and there are even more things that kind of more complicated traders could get involved with, like bridging in liquidity from the Ethereum chain and basically creating two-sided liquidity pairs and yield farming from that. So it's a massive yield farming opportunity because everybody's going to get a free copy, and that plays out really in an interesting way after price discovery happens, because if you bridge together a bunch of liquidity, then the price moves together and it becomes a really attractive derivative play for a lot of people. So.
And so, real quick, just for some of the people that's watching, because definitely you're breaking it down to your level of technicality.
Yeah.
And so, when we talk about Pulsechain itself, it is essentially another chain, right? That's going to essentially fork the code and all of the coins onto Pulsechain. And then as we get into PulseX, if I am correct, it is pretty much the decentralized exchange that's going to be operating on Pulsechain.
Well, it's a decentralized.
No, decentralized exchange, excuse me.
But
Yes,
it will have the most liquidity probably, which kind of but it's still different than a centralized exchange. But yeah, it's and I got a slide for that too. But yeah, you're correct. This is another layer one solution for Ethereum. And I actually, my next slide, oh, it's down here. What did I skip? Oh, how to qualify, and then I'll go over like how these chains have done in the past. So if you want to qualify to get a free copy of your coins, the best way to do it is to take custody of your own coins. And so if you have an ERC20 on a centralized exchange, then you might want to come up with a plan and do your own research and get that into a MetaMask wallet that you control, and never share your secret recovery phrase. Now, a lot of people out there, do the people who watch your channel, do they already know what MetaMask is?
I would assume so, yes. I mean, but if you want to do a brief overview, I mean, why not?
So yeah, it's just a wallet where you control the private keys. So you are your own bank, and that's what crypto was invented for, before people realized they could use it to just get rich. And, you know, some people don't like having the responsibility of holding their own coins because you can lose them. But if you just follow some pretty simple steps, there's, you know, millions of people who have done this, and MetaMask is by far the most popular DeFi and self-custody crypto solution. You have to make sure that you go to the right website, metamask.io. But if you already have your coins in MetaMask, you don't have to do anything to qualify for this airdrop. And you'll simply switch one of the settings in your MetaMask to switch to the Pulse chain, just like you would switch to the testnet or Binance chain or something like that. So,
and I would recommend also use a ledger as well with MetaMask, just in my personal opinion. Because I mean, yes, it's the largest, but me personally, I only use MetaMask if a protocol only accepts MetaMask. I'm not a huge fan.
Good advice. These other chains that are layer one have done crazy returns. Just going down the list here, you know, these are coins that on average, you know, they went for 1.4 years. AVAX did a 56x. That's over 5,500%. BNB did a 33x. Solana did a 1200x, Luna 1000x, FTM 2000x, Atom 41x, and how do you pronounce that one?
CeeLo, yeah.
14x. So on average, that's like a 656x. And these did not even have any of the tokenomics that Pulsechain does. Pulsechain is deflationary. 95% of the supply is held by the origin address. So, and that address has never sold a single hex in 2.5 years. And we'll get into that more later. But there's so many tokenomics, there's going to be millions of users coming in to try to get their free money, using low fees and having the entire system state there. I mean, there were only about 40,000 people who were the initial investors in Pulsechain, and that raised about $600 million. And in order for Pulsechain to not be considered a security, there are rules like the Securities and Exchange Commission. The Howey test says that, we can't have expectations of the work of others, in a common pool, that sort of thing. And so the Hex and Richard Hart community, literally, we just sacrificed our money. We sent money to an address and said oh, we don't have any expectations, because we knew that we would be getting an airdrop back more than likely. And so there were 40,000 people who participated in the Pulsechain kind of initial investment. And just to show you how much things grew from when Pulsechain did its buy-in period about a year ago, which it's going to launch in about a month. It's going to launch next month. The testnet is working flawlessly, and it's probably the most used testnet in crypto history. But then about 5 months ago, we did the PulseX sacrifice, which was people doing initial investing for the third Richard Hart project, which is PulseX. And that had participation from about 120,000 people. So there's 3 times as many people who, got interested in this one, which is a coin that is going to function kind of like if you were an exchange owner, you would be getting fees. And there's a 0.3% fee that's built in to Uniswap. And so this is kind of like a fork of Uniswap so that we can have a decentralized exchange on Pulsechain. The majority of people that are going to be going in to get their free money, the millions of people, some of them are going to hold, some of them are going to buy more, some of them are going to sell. Yeah. But all those people, except the holders, they're all going to be catching these tiny transaction fees of 0.29%. So less than 1/3%. And all of that money that's collected, which turns out to be many millions of dollars a day on all these other networks, that is literally going to be, it's a buy and burn that is much more trustless than anything else. So you don't have to rely on a person at Binance to choose to wake up that day and buy and burn coins. The PulseX coin is not only deflationary, but because it burns a little bit of itself, but it also, all the fees go back into buying it and burning even more of it. So it's got really good tokenomics as well.
Got it. Well said. Well said.
And then in terms of who's the founder, Richard Hart is super controversial. I can break that down from my psychology perspective. Is Richard is a super awesome guy who is acting like anybody else would if they made billions of dollars in crypto, even before he started making his own coins, and then just had to put up with trolls all the time, and then got gate kept all over the place, is just kind of an eccentric person, Elon Musk and Donald Trump, all these people, they know what they're doing. They're getting attention. And so Richard, he is playing those games as well to try to get attention. A lot of people call him a scammer, but they don't have any evidence. And that's part of the difference between, I would rather get rich with a community of people who like can see through the FUD and can see through the gatekeeping. And it's a shame that not everybody got that chance because there were so many important people in Bitcoin calling Richard a scammer. He literally started off like pitching Hex as a coin that could use scam tactics to stop people from getting scammed, because at the time there was the Plus token Ponzi in China that's like the biggest crypto Ponzi that ever happened, bigger than BitConnect, and it collected $4 billion worth of people's crypto and like contributed to the bear market at the time in like 2018, 2019. And so when Richard was talking about like, yeah, like I'm going to promise, or not really promise, but like I'm going to advertise super high returns. Like people can make people could make a 10,000x, he said. And every channel on YouTube called him a scammer for saying that, even though they were hoping that their coin would do the same thing. They just had this rule that you couldn't say that. Well, the Ponzi scammers, they were saying that. And so Richard said it too, to try to save people out of that group. And, like, guess what? From day 33 in Hex all the way to, it only took about 2 years for Hex to do a 10,000x. And then, of course, everybody, that was like their dream come true. So the price like went down from 50 cents all the way back to like 13 cents now. But Hex has had about 6 or 7 corrections of 60%, and then always gone on to do a new all-time high. But it's just really incredible because there's the psychology of the crypto market and people not wanting to get scammed, but calling someone a scammer without any evidence. And then there's the psychology of like Richard himself, who is a billionaire in Bitcoin and in Ethereum and in USDC and in Hex. And so why would he sell his Hex if he could just sell Bitcoin and Ethereum and USDC? I don't think he would. I think that that's just like, it's just as good as the game theory for me as me saying, why would a miner not allow a double spend in Bitcoin? Because they have the right incentives, because they're getting paid to do a certain job. Well, Richard, just like everybody else in Hex, we're all getting paid to hold the price up by not selling. And that's why we've time locked our crypto. In his case, he's just holding it. But it's really cool. And so we can see in Hex that Hex continues to outperform even what Bitcoin did when it was 2.5 years old. And it's still got a lot of room to run, as you can see on this chart, that it's fallen in the same footsteps as Bitcoin and Ethereum in terms of how far it can go up. We know that cryptos can go up. Bitcoin went up 6 million X from a penny. And that's only if we count the starting price at a penny. Some people bought it for half a penny. But that's like, so it's really 12 million X, but we're being modest.
Yeah.
We're saying 6 million X. So Hex right now is up like 2000 X from its launch point, maybe less than that. Maybe from its all-time low, it's up 2000 X. So like, but it's following the footsteps. And so with Hex, you time lock for APY, which is about 10% if you lock for a year. If you lock for 6 years, you get like about 33%. You can choose to not lock at all, or you can lock for up to 15 years. We just saw the prices doing better than Bitcoin when it was 2.5 years old. This is the best statistic you could possibly have in crypto. The average hold time in Hex for people who are time locked is 2,300 days. And the average hold time is in Bitcoin is 111 days on Coinbase. So that's why people in Hex are so annoying to everybody else in crypto, is because they can't get out, because we've all voluntarily time locked our money and we're being paid to not dump the price. And some people can cash out, but then that's just an opportunity for the next person to get in on the next wave up. And so it's like over 6 years is the average hold time. There's about 100,000, there's about 90,000 people who have time locked. And, to get an average of 6 years, you have to have a lot of people doing 15 years and a
Yeah.
lot of people, to balance out all the people who are doing a month or a week or something. And I would say, the other thing to keep in mind when it comes to the average hold time is that you don't have to pick one amount of time. So for me, I like passive income. So what I did is I time locked, every year on my birthday. I have a time lock coming out for the next 15 years. And I've been in Hex since the beginning. So I know that last year in June on my birthday, I got this Hex stake that came out. And, it was like, I put in like $200 and it came out and it's like $100,000 or something. And so I took half of it. That was my principal of like how much it had appreciated. In Hex terms, I took my principal and I time locked it for another 15.2 years. And so now I have another step on my ladder. And so if I keep doing that, if I keep reinvesting my principal and just living off my interest, then I'll have passive income forever. I'll be able to keep generating more Hex, basically, because everybody gets Hex paid to them if they're time locked every day, but you can't sell it until the end of your time lock. And now I'll tell you one thing that I didn't necessarily predict, which is interesting, is how much free money was going to appear in following these Richard Hart projects. So now I might not even have to live off my interest. I might be able to just live off my airdrops, okay? Which is like wild to say. But the ENS airdrop was, I had at least three of those. So that was like over $10,000, I think. The Hedron airdrop was like $80,000. The, let's see, Pulse Dogecoin is the latest one that is worth like in between 200 and 1,000. Well, no, it's up to a couple $1,000 like per wallet. And even if you're somebody who has Hex staked for even if you only put $100 into Hex and staked it, you qualify for the Pulse Dogecoin airdrop. You might get, $20 or $10 worth of Pulse Dogecoin. But my prediction is that what we're starting to see is that the set of users who have time locked their Hex is like a really valuable set of people to airdrop coins to. And so I'm predicting that this will be the summer of people airdropping coins to Hex holders. And so people can go to hex.com and use the Uniswap widget there to buy Hex and then go to go.hex.com to stake it. Or you can I made a front end that does not take a fee and kind of like walks you through everything automatically. And that's tshare.io. I'm probably going to rebrand it soon so it's easier for people to remember, but that's where I'm at right now. And paymyfutureself.com goes to all my links, and you can follow me on YouTube and Twitter and Telegram. What questions do you have for me? And
man, so I'm going to share something here real quick. I found just to kind of make things a little bit more simpler, because you was breaking down everything from like ins and outs, right? And so let me go ahead. I found a pretty good article from Crypto Slate, and they do a pretty good job of talking about Pulsechain and PulseX, just pretty much in simplest terms.
Cool.
So let's see. All right, can you see that at all?
Yes.
Cool. All right, so you can see what problem, does Pulsechain solve? And so if you look right here, according to the founder Richard Hart, Pulsechain will be a fork of Ethereum, which you've talked about. The main claims are 4x throughput, proof of stake, and deflationary mechanism. Now, of course, there's more to that, and I'm going to go into that here in a second. And then we look at PulseX as the Ethereum ecosystem will be copied over to Pulsechain, PulseX will be the fork of Uniswap. So anything that you kind of want to add to that as well, based off of Pulsechain or PulseX?
Yeah. I mean, like 4x faster than Ethereum is like 3-second blocks, and that seems to be working out on the testnet. So that's a little bit better for for transactions. If you want to catch up with Visa, something like that. 3 seconds is good.
And so I was looking at Pulsechain as well. Here are some of the goals. So we understand the problems and stuff like that is solving. But when we look at some of the goals of Pulsechain, increase Ethereum's volume, the enrich of ETH users, enrich ERC20 NFT users, which I know NFTs, I think is going to be huge as well with the minimum of fees that the Pulsechain offers. Easy to use, lower Pulsechain fees and serve more users, remove pollution, improve game theory, and then empower Pulsechain holders with the native token PLS. So this just kind of gives a brief overview of the goals of Pulsechain for those that may still be wondering, what are the goals? What is Pulsechain? What is it solving? And all of that good stuff.
And it's the other solution that it's bringing is this thing called proof of stake, which is that's basically where in Pulsechain, we're going to have 33 validators that they can get incentives for stopping double spends, but it removes the need to have all these miners polluting the environment. And look, I like how Bitcoiners defend their energy footprint, and I think like some of them do a better job than others. At the end of the day, we can all be right a little bit, I think, on that point, that like, energy is hard to quantify. Like, how much does the banking industry use? Like, how much do all the bank branches, like how much, when I hear people talk about that, it's like, okay, that's cool. But like 33, like half racks of cloud computers is way less than what's going on, and it's just as secure, which is the other thing. So that's nice.
Yeah. And so when you were talking about 40,000 people did the sacrifice for Pulsechain, and then 120,000 for PulseX, these will be the coins that you're referring to that have been sacrificed, right, for PulseX.
Yeah, they went into an address, and the ones that are not hex and I think USDC, all those other ones got sold, and converted into a stable. It might be a different stable than USDC, but they're still on the chain there.
And so this question here, he says that's a third-party project, not endorsed by Richard Hart.
Pulse Dogecoin is not endorsed by Richard Hart, correct?
So I'm not sure if he's talking about Pulse Doge or Pulsechain or PulseX.
Pulsechain and PulseX are both created by Richard Hart.
Correct. So I just wanted to bring some light to that. I'm not exactly sure was he talking about Pulse Doge or Pulsechain or PulseX. So hopefully we answered your question there. So if you have any questions though to Mati or myself about Pulsechain or Hex, or maybe what Matt's outlook is on the future of these protocols, go ahead and ask your question down in the comment section. I was replying to the, I got you, brother. Sounds good.
So the Hex rabbit hole is like so deep that I did a show for over 60 weeks that was on average 5 hours long every Tuesday night live stream with like these two other guys who are incredibly smart. And like, that's how long it took us to cover all the material. It's like hundreds of hours, but yeah, to keep things simple for people who are new, like, I think we've done a good job of covering it. I would love to hear from you, Mike. What are you going to do with your free coins? Like, do you have any ERC20 bags that are going to copy over?
Honestly, as I mentioned to you on at the Bitcoin conference, I definitely got to do a lot more research into it. But I have dabbled into it since I've gotten back. I've gotten a lot more educated on what is Pulse Chain, what is Pulse X. Now, actually doing the copying and over, and what exactly do I want to move over, that I would have to look into and see. But I'm definitely interested in investing in Pulse Chain for sure.
So do you own any ERC-20s?
I do. I do. Yeah.
So do you have an example of one that you own a little bit of, or a lot, either way?
We could say Chainlink.
Okay, so Chainlink.
Yeah.
So when Pulse Chain launches, you will still have your Chainlink on Ethereum, but you will also have the same number of Chainlink on Pulse Chain automatically. And so you will have your P Chainlink and your E link, right? And
Yeah.
so you won't have to like bridge anything over. You won't have to do anything. You could just hold it and watch and see what the price does. Or you could trade, you could try to trade it. You could trade it to Pulse and then trade the Pulse for Ethereum and buy more E-Link. Or, you could take some USDC, you could in Ethereum, and you could bridge it over into Pulse Chain, and you could buy more P-Link from, if it's trading at a 90% discount or something. You
Right.
could you could become a whale if you want in some things, perhaps. And then so that's like the first kind of level of complexity of what people could do in the system, and I think it's gonna be really fascinating to see what people do.
So when is there an actual ETA yet for it? Because I know testnet is out and all of that. Has that actually been put out for Pulse Chain launch?
On one of the websites for the testnet, you could see what the progress is of all the validators, like uploading the entire history of Ethereum, like all the transactions that have ever occurred. And that process is, I think, about 40% complete, and it's going by like 2% a day. And so that's why people are saying that part of the process should be synced up in about a month from now. So like late May is when people are predicting that it'll come out. And that's what Richard has said. Although he also says that he's never gotten a software timing thing right before. Like that's the one thing he can't predict, is like how fast the programmers will finish everything. But yeah, it's very close judging by the testnet. And
So essentially, from now till then, you will have that ability to get your copy from any ERC20 tokens from PLS tokens.
yeah, people will have to hold ERC20s in their own wallets at the time of the snapshot, which probably will be announced slightly ahead of time within the next month. And so we don't think that it's occurred yet, but that's kind of what we're looking at.
I understand. Gotcha. So the snap, so you would definitely have to have, your ERC20 tokens way before the actual snapshot, because only the people with the snapshot will have the ability to get those copies. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay.
So it's kind of like a fork, and it's kind of like an airdrop.
Yeah, at the same time. And one thing I was curious about, we was talking about at the Bitcoin conference, is being able to have copies of your NFTs. Now that is massive in my opinion. That could really change the game. Cause I mean, could you just think of a Bored Ape Yacht Club right now being on Pulse Chain? Of course, it's not going to have the same value. However, let's say investors want to operate more on Pulse Chain, as you was talking about earlier, as you were going over the complexities of it. Well, if people have more value over here in Pulse Chain, essentially that's going to take the asset price of whatever that is higher than the opposite blockchain. So I think that's very interesting just to see how all of this is going to plan out. I think there may be some congestion problems, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it'll be super fascinating. And the fees are going to start off on Pulse Chain so low that it's like, like you could do 100 transactions for a penny. And so, yeah, like how are the fees going to rise? I think at first people are going to be able to do whatever they want, and it's going to be like a paradise. And then after maybe like 3 or 4 years, then the fees might go so high. But then people who own stuff on that chain will be rich by then. So
That's true.
we'll
That's
just
definitely
fork it
true.
again.
That's true. That is true. So this person says, Ishmael or Ishmael. Hopefully I didn't mess your name up.
Ishmael.
Ishmael, how do I get started with Pulse Chain?
So what we know is that when things release at first, it could pump immediately or it could sell at a discount, right? People who initially invested in Pulsechain, some of them might want to sell when it hits its first 10x or something. And so it really depends on like how you want to play it. Some people are playing it by buying Hex now because you'll be able to swap Hex for Pulse and PulseX like a day or two before everything else trades. And so that's kind of like a little hack that we know about. But then also some people will just have dry powder waiting. I'm not very good at making market predictions, but I've heard some people make a pretty good case that the market could go down from here. I don't really know, but I think for me, like what I've been doing with my coins is I've been moving a lot into USDC, just of like of the airdrops I've been getting, and like of like the ETH dust I have in like all these different wallets, like adds up, after a while. And so
yeah,
there's a couple different ways to play that because Pulse Chain is not for sale now. So you have to watch out for scam coins that have the same name. So you can't buy Pulse Chain or PulseX yet, but you can buy Hex.
and so for people that's coming in as well, Hex is a kind of operates like a CD, correct? Where you're able to stake. You can also just buy the token if you want to trade it. But however, it's focused on delaying your gratification, being able to, pay your future self, being able to invest, lock it up based off of how long you feel is comfortable for your strategy while earning appreciation. And then once that stake comes undone, you're able to, get those rewards, restake, or depending on whatever your strategy is. So I mean, in a nutshell, it's more so of kind of like a savings account for crypto is how it acts in certain degrees. Is that correct, or would you say that's false?
Yeah, that's a great way of explaining it. And for some people, the crypto CD concept really makes sense to them. And for other people, they're like, what is a CD? Aren't CDs boring? Don't they have like low APYs, like 1%? And so like in Hex, there's way more volatility like in any other crypto. And that's a feature, not a bug, because that's what part of what crypto is designed for, is for the impatient to pay the patient. And so if you're patient enough to buy a dip, right now in Hex, there's a 70% dip from the all-time high. So people who are accumulating now, maybe Hex drops a lot from here, or maybe it doesn't. We don't know. But in the long term, I predict that more and more people will use this because it's so immutable in terms of having a savings plan. If you time lock your Hex, you cannot get it out right away.
Right.
And if you get hacked, which I interviewed a gentleman who got $80 million worth of Hex hacked from him, thankfully, and he's like an awesome guy, and he still has millions of dollars of other crypto, and so he's like not on suicide watch or something. But this was a few months ago, and when the hackers tried to take his Hex that was time locked, they hit the end button, and it was only about 2 years into a 15-year stake, and like 99% of the Hex got sent to all the other wallets that were time locked, because that's how the contract works. If you try to cheat the system, it takes all of your principal and pays everybody who kept their promise. And so that's called the truth engine. And so even like, in Bitcoin and Ethereum, if somebody gets hacked, like the price is going down. usually because the hackers are dumping it, right?
Right.
But in Hex, it's even got that strange protection built into it to some extent, where you can save yourself from yourself, right? And that's the whole idea. Is like Richard Hart was buying Hex, or sorry, he was buying Bitcoin when it was $10 per Bitcoin. The only people who held on to those mad gains and became billionaires were like the super rare people who maybe like lost their keys or like had some extreme delaying gratification, like almost like fetish or something. Because like the normal rational person would like feel all the ups and downs of Bitcoin. You know, one day you're a millionaire, then like you're not, you know, it goes down 80%, like you're depressed and all that kind of stuff. Like, so pretty much everybody in Bitcoin, like they couldn't hold on to the mad gains, but in Hex, some of us can only because we're time locked. And so that's really what it means to like pay your future self, is kind of a phrase I came up with. And it's like, the reason you're doing that is because the smart contract is holding you to the savings plan that you've created. And so I recommend for people, if you're new in Hex, what you can do is you can take, even if you get started with a couple $100, because of Ethereum fees, I wouldn't do much less than that. Or maybe somebody wants to do $2,000 worth of Hex, whatever it is. But then you can split it into 4 pieces, and you can do a 5, 10, and 15-year stake, and then keep the 4th step on the ladder liquid. And so you could sell that if the price goes up a lot. We've seen the price go up a lot in Hex. Like, you know, it did like a 10x since this time last year. And, you know, in 2 years, it's probably up like 1,000x or something. And so, so if people keep liquid, then they can enjoy those mad gains.
There's a current price of just what Hex has done since it's been out, which is kind of crazy, right? Just to see the price movement. And
that's before staking, which if you were staked, you would have done twice as well as that.
Yeah. So that's
interest. So
yeah, that's pretty cool, man. That's definitely pretty cool. And then look at the market cap, man. 73 billion, man. And Hex has been here, what, 2 years now? A little over 2 years? Or when was the actual 2-year anniversary for Hex?
It was December, and like I think it's December 19th.
Okay. Yeah, that's so man, it's going on November, 3 years then.
Yeah, December. Yeah. So it's 2.5 now.
2.5, yeah. So it's going on 3 years, man. That's crazy. And to have protocols like this in DeFi, typically, you know, just from history, don't last that long. And so for it to be here well over 2 years, going on 3, I mean, says a lot as well. Because I mean, when you think about it, it's really not the doxing that makes you legit. It's the longevity. Because I mean, doxing doesn't 100% stop scams, doesn't stop rug pulls, doesn't stop people from abandoning projects, right? And so when you go back to what blockchain was really for, is we verify and don't trust, which means we don't know who's on the other side of that protocol, right? And so this is how things are starting to get back to, like, yeah, we have, you know, faces out here now like Richard Hart, but I think that's good. And I also think it can be a bad thing when you look at how the government is coming at certain protocols or certain centralized platforms or decentralized platforms when they go to crack down. And so that's the only fault I have when people are fully doxed, because it gives you a target. You have a target now. So it makes them, the powers that be, so to speak, you know, able to come at you a little bit easier compared to just having a protocol that operates with a common cause. You can't take that down, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, you know, having a central point of failure is like, that's a serious concern, because that's why we're in crypto, is to be decentralized. I think like one counterpoint, or like even a supporting point kind of to what you're saying, is it matters like how decentralized you are matters only if it's an immediate threat, in my opinion. And so like if you had examples of people kicking down doors with 33 validators, you would want to get 100 validators.
Right.
But like if nobody's kicked down any of the doors with like 3 validators, you know, maybe you don't want to trust only 3 people. So maybe there is a correct range in that regard. And then when it comes to like whether you're security or not, really, I mean, it's a legal matter. And Arthur Hayes, right? Like he was running BitMEX from his little island in Seychelles, and he had like a fortress there, and he was allowing people to do 100x leverage, and like people using VPNs to get themselves wrecked, like from the United States. Like, yeah, like they tracked him down and put him on the run. And I think I saw him on Twitter the other day, so I'm not really sure how that story ended. But
But yeah, man. So I do think it's interesting, man, and it's funny just to see what's your thought, kind of just like how things have changed, right? Because of course we had the SEC that's cracked down on centralized exchanges that stop like investors that use centralized platforms from earning that passive income, right? And so with people now getting more into DeFi, want to learn more about DeFi and NFTs, which is kind of the two ways to really now make money without centralized exchanges. What's your kind of thought process on that? What's your whole thing? Which I know you're a DeFi king. You've been in it for a while, and you're into Hex and Pulsechain. But what's kind of your thought process on just the shift of how things have happened, like for investors now that are in crypto?
I think I always try to look back when I'm trying to predict like how things are going to go. I try to look at history and incentives, and that's how I kind of look, make my predictions. And so like, what are the incentives of a DeFi protocol that's holding your keys for you and giving you a little bit of interest? Like their incentive is to get themselves hacked or to have somebody run away with the money because you've given your keys to them, right? Not your keys, not your crypto. And regulators are going to go after those people a lot of the times because they're funding terrorism or they're stealing from people, they're defrauding people, scams and stuff. We see on YouTube, we see they're replaying videos of Vitalik and Elon and saying, send us, 2 coins and we'll send you 4 or something like that.
Which is just crazy, man. It's crazy that it still goes on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I mean, Richard Hart got verified on Twitter yesterday when Elon bought Twitter the same day. He got his little check mark. So it's like, and there were so many scammers because he had 200,000 followers and Twitter wouldn't verify him. And so there were 1 million accounts pretending to be him, direct messaging people, that sort of thing. So like, that's like that. When there's so much money involved and people are learning something that's so new, and there is gatekeeping by the government, by centralized exchanges to like protect people, it also allows people to get scammed because they have to go outside of that system to get the real thing, to hold their own keys, to get behind the, get outside of the gatekeeping and that sort of thing. But yeah, so I think like the incentives matter a lot, but I also think that the SEC, like they're going to go after low hanging fruit. They're going to go after the people who are like lying the most, not the people who are like necessarily the most successful, because those people are going to have a lot of supporters behind them. If somebody went after Richard Hart, there would be thousands of millionaires like backing him. Like, if there was some unfair thing the government was trying to do, like, well, we have a lot of connections in Washington, D.C. already. Like, so that's kind of how I see it playing out, is that the things that are more scammy are probably going to get regulated the most. But a lot of regulation too is just like fear, and using fear to try to get politicians, like to get people to pay them off, like lobbyists and that sort of thing. And so when Elizabeth Warren says like, and Nancy Pelosi and anybody in politics, when they say we're going to regulate crypto, what they mean is everybody who got rich off crypto needs to pay our campaigns to keep us in power. Otherwise, we're going to screw you up. And that's politics.
Hey, that's real, man. That's real. Because I mean, this is the stuff that's really not talked about. Because I mean, when you think about this, when you think about the Biden thing that came out late last year, he said they were going after They put out the tax law for people who made over $1 million in capital gains, right? Well, if you think about the different asset classes, right? Precious metals, the regular stock market, forex trading, it's pretty much not doing that in a 12-month calendar unless you already have money, right?
Mhm.
So if you're an average investor, the odds of you making $1 million in profit in 12 months in the stock market, forex trading, is not going to happen unless you already have a substantial amount of money. So you have to ask the question, who are they targeting?
Yeah.
Crypto. And so you have to ask the question as well, why are they targeting crypto? And so this kind of goes into things you talk about, like being able to control your emotions, understand what's truly coming in the future, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it goes back to like fear and greed, I think, to some extent, and being knowledgeable and critical thinking and regulating emotions. I like to recommend people taking omega 369, which is like fish oil,
Hmm.
and what that does is like 25% of the weight of your brain is supposed to be omega 3, but most people don't get enough of it. And it's so powerful. This is like $5 a month at your local like Walmart or like wherever you get groceries. Like I don't need to shill anything, but the people
It's
who I
just
tell
vitamins.
the people who I tell about omega 3 is like it's so different than vitamins because you notice that you're thinking more clearly. And so if there's like one hack that I have for people regulating their emotions and like being able to get richer in crypto, it's actually go get some omega 369. And after taking it for a week, you could take like 1,000 milligrams a day with food for the first week. And then you might notice the differences already. And that's something that can help you be able to like have the critical thinking more automatically, have the emotional regulation more automatically, and then build from there.
Cool, cool. And I got a question I'm going to ask you here, but I briefly want to answer that. You said thoughts on Nexos. I mean, it's a centralized exchange that just kind of has to go through the process. I mean, in my opinion, they offer interest to investors, and the as regulation comes in, they're coming at every centralized exchange. I mean, every centralized exchange. Voyage has been came at now, Nexo. So I mean, I think it's just part of the process of regulation, coming in. What do you think about that, Maddie?
I mean, any exchange that holds your keys, it has, pros and cons. Um, they're somewhat responsible if they lose it, but how does that work out usually for people? Not very well. um,
Right, right.
so I mean, yeah, so like hold your own keys and like use protocols that give you interest without giving up your keys. That's where Hex shines. You can get passive income without giving up your keys because it's working through a smart contract. There's 3.69% inflation. It's paid to people who are time locked. The majority of people are not time locked. So you get all their interest too. And that's how you get the 10% a year. That's how you get the 30% per year if you time lock for 6 years. And so but everything on Pulsechain is going to also have the ability to get yield without giving up your keys. Now, there's a problem with that called impermanent loss. And people who are not familiar with yield farming should go look that up and then be very scared to put their coins into a yield farm because you can really miss out on mad gains if you're doing that. However, for some pairs, there might be situations where it's much safer. And uh, so that's another opportunity. I think coming soon, there's going to be a lot more options for people to get passive income yield without giving up their keys.
Yeah, and I think that's big as well, man. I mean, that's huge. That's huge. I mean, that's huge within itself. Being able to make passive income without having to give complete access to someone, say, hey, now you have my, because I mean, if they're hacked, there's nothing we can do about it. You know what I mean? That's just like if you look at NFT staking, pretty much every NFT out there, very few allow you to stake it without having to actually put it in that smart contract. And so if it's hacked, there goes our assets, right? So I mean, I think that's huge, and I think we will start to see more of that. But one question I wanted to ask, man, as we're a little bit over an hour, so but I know you typically do super long live streams full of information, so I know it's no problem for you. But one question I wanted to ask, man, how did you deal with your wealth when you accumulated it, when you became a millionaire, a multimillionaire in Hex? Like, because I know it was a complete change, and one thing someone told me as well is when you make, when you make that first million, or when you make a nice amount of money that is close to that or more than you've ever had, leave it sitting for about 6 months and get used to actually having it. Kind of like once you hit another financial level, after a while, if you stay there, you're going to get used to it, right? You're like, oh, this is the norm now. And so kind of talk to us about how did you navigate through that whole process? Coming into a ton of money at one time was like, whoa, this is actually for real. So talk to us about that, man.
Well, I would say that I planned ahead for this sudden wealth that I knew was possible in crypto. And there's something called sudden wealth syndrome that I read up on, being the psychology type and being somebody who um, I was kind of surprised that I would have to speak on that topic, because I basically committed my life before crypto to like helping people who are below the poverty line. And so that was my like day to day, was just like working with people who have literally nothing, or like, their income is zero to like all the way up to like $15,000 a year for a whole family. And then like they wouldn't qualify for coming to my drug clinic anymore. Um, so like that was what I was used to. And then me getting paid like not a lot of money to work a lot of hours at that mental health and substance abuse clinic, like gave me kind of a humble perspective on everything, and made it so that I wasn't necessarily interested in, spending all the money at once I got it. But, with Hex, I planned ahead as well, because I was able to set up that staking ladder. And so all of my wealth is like, I'm protected from screwing it all up at once, as long as I don't hit the big red end button early, because I've got money coming out every year on my birthday. And so that was interesting. And there's a lot of emotions and like things that you wouldn't predict when you win the lottery or you get rich in crypto suddenly. Is it kind of ends this like silent struggle that you didn't know you were in, for like surviving and like making paycheck to paycheck. Even if you're not living, even if you're comfortable, it's like, now if you have multiple millions of dollars in savings, like you might get paranoid that you're going to lose it suddenly. You might tell everybody, and then they treat you differently, and you're like, oops, I didn't mean to do that. You might be more rude to people because you expect them to treat you a certain way. Like there's all these things that it's like, these haven't been my personal experiences necessarily, but just educating myself on what has happened to other people, and then talking through that and kind of planning ahead and saying like, well, I don't want all of my relationships to go to shit because of my wealth. So like, what are the skills I need to work on that? And so I recommend to people like, stay grounded. What you said about like waiting, wait to tell everybody, wait to spend the money, um, anything that you can do to like avoid impulsivity, and then to learn from others. So I was lucky enough to like come up in a group of YouTubers who like all became multimillionaires from Hex. Like, so I have tons of friendships and acquaintances with people who I can call up and be like, hey, I'm going through this. Like, how is that going for you? And there's people who, they're way richer in Hex than I am. And I can kind of look ahead and see like, oh, the next time Hex does a 10X, like, what am I going to go through that I see them going through now? The people who have more than me. And so I think that being in Hex made it so I didn't get the full effect of just having all this liquid money, because a lot of my money is time locked. But other than that, I would say it's also good to like have a balance in things. And so I've I've like probably the biggest purchase I made is I bought a DeLorean, like in Back to the
Nice.
Future. And
Nice.
I took it all around the country. It's like 8 different meetups, and used it as like kind of a marketing thing, not for me to make a profit, but just for me to like pay it forward. The fact that people taught me about Hex for free, and that I think it's a perfect symbol of paying your future self. Like Back to the Future and all that. And it really like makes people happy when they see the Back to the Future car. It's like really awesome. And so that's like, a big purchase that I made. But on the other hand, I still like buying dress clothes 80% off. And I feel like myself when I do that. And so
Nice.
it's like, just because you have more money, it doesn't mean you have to be an asshole or you have to spend it all or like anything. You can maintain the deep relationships that you hopefully have already with people. You can make new friends. You can develop your hobbies and interests. And where I've really gotten to at this point is now I get to work on cool things like helping to promote longevity research, which is like, how can we use science to like hack these 7 different ways that cells age so that we can literally reverse our own aging. And there's like one of the guys who has been on Joe Rogan twice, came on my channel last week, Aubrey
Oh, wow.
DeGray, and talked about his foundation that he's set up. And there's actually, I met some guys at the Bitcoin conference who, one of them is the CEO of the Methuselah Foundation, which is Vitalik's favorite charity, one of them. And Vitalik gave them $300 million worth of dog coins about a year ago. And so I'm going to help them get their free copy on Pulsechain. So
Nice. That's what's up, man. That's what's up.
yeah.
That's pretty cool, man. That's also, if you guys are watching, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and Maddie's YouTube channel is in the description. So definitely go over and give him a subscribe. And Matt, for the people that has been new coming into the channel, kind of let them know what you talk about on your channel. Because I mean, he's Hex retired, as you heard him say himself. He's a multimillionaire and he's very level headed. So kind of tell them what you cover on your channel as well, so they just know what they're getting themselves into.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. So I do 2 live streams a week, and it's on Tuesday and Thursday nights. And it's at 7:30 Central, 5:30 if you're in California, and 8:30 if you're on the East Coast. Sometimes I start a few minutes late, but I've been doing this for like 78 weeks or something like that. So it's like really consistent. And I stream for usually at least an hour or 2. On Tuesday nights, I have other experts on in the crypto space. And usually on Thursday nights, I do a solo stream. Thursday nights is for Hex therapy. So we talk about Sun Well syndrome, how to, become the best version of yourself possible. It's kind of a mix between crypto and mental health. And then on Tuesday nights is we get super technical and can answer questions. And tonight we're going to have the founder of an airdrop, the Pulse Dogecoin airdrop founder, on and talk about whether Richard Hart called a new top or not in crypto. So yeah.
Cool. So giving him a subscribe, also give him a follow as well. If you are on Twitter, I know most people are. I mean, Twitter is like so informational. You can learn a lot from Twitter. Definitely if you're just getting into crypto. So yeah, make sure you give Matt a follow, man. Great information, great guy, super down to earth. And to be honest with you, you wouldn't know that Matt was a millionaire if he didn't tell you, just because of how he operates. And that's one thing I appreciate about you, man.
Thank you so much.
So yeah, once I want to say thanks as well for coming on to the channel. Definitely have to do this again in the future. If you'd like to have me on, just let me know. We got each other contact number. And
that'd be great.
if anyone has any last minute questions about, Hex, Matt's journey into crypto, Pulse Chain, or PulseX, please ask. Let us know. So Hex operates on Ethereum. It's more of a, in simplest terms, kind of like a savings account for you that
Yes.
allows you to earn passive income. And then you have Pulse Chain, which is going to be a complete copy and fork of Ethereum. And then you have Pulse X, which will be the decentralized exchange operating, one of the main decentralized exchanges operating on Pulse Chain. So did I say that correct, Mr. Matt?
Absolutely. Yeah, you did a great job of summarizing.
Cool, cool. Well, hey, man, I want to say thanks for everyone for tuning into the live stream. The playback will be available. Matt, thanks again for coming on to the show and sharing your knowledge with us, man.
My pleasure. Thank you.